welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. As always, it's me, your host Yusuf. Now, without further ado, let's just get right to it. So, you guys see the title of the episode. So, LeBron James and JJ Redick are launching their own podcast called Mind the Game. Now, it's meant to be on having pure conversations surrounding basketball. So, when I heard the news, I had a lot of thoughts about it. So let me break this down because there's quite a bit to unpack here. My first thought was, why is LeBron launching his own podcast? Then it occurred to me, it's because I believe that he's a narcissist who loves the attention. He likes the attention of being a basketball player, but it's obvious that his career is winding down. So he needs a new medium to be in front of the cameras. So he's tried acting and he was trash at it. He can only star or produce movies about himself or about basketball, like literally. So in the movie Trainwreck, he played himself. Space Jam 2, he played himself. In the House Party remake, he played none other than himself. And all of these movies, you know what they have in common other than him playing himself? They were all garbage, right? And then he did a movie with Adam Sandler about what? Basketball. Of course. He recently produced a movie about his own high school basketball team. Now, needless to say, movies aren't exactly his forte. So he's just trying to find a lane to keep his name relevant. And also, what this podcast also shows me is that he doesn't exactly have an original bone in his body. So let me explain what I mean by that. So this concept, right, of breaking down the game is something that has already been done before. So Kobe Bryant, to God we belong and to him we shall return, he had an ESPN Plus show called Detail. And in Detail, he broke down players' games, he broke down different plays, what works and what doesn't work. Now he was literally dissecting basketball. And I saw a brief clip that circulated on the internet when the show was first announced, and to me, it just looked like a cheap imitation of it. So I'm going to show you guys the clip, and then I'm going to break all of this down. And of course, this is fair use. And also, before I play the clip, like this video and subscribe to the channel. So here's the clip, and again, this is fair use.
We'll do in basketball too. Like it's a couple other coverages I would do. The pick the picker, B.O.B. Not bombs over Baghdad, but baseline out of bounds.
Yeah. America's play.
Yeah, America's play.
Yeah.
You have the guard, you have the best shooter sitting in the middle of the lane.
Yep.
You have the biggest wing sitting at the top.
Yep.
5 is on the strong side. You have the point guard taking it out.
Yeah. And then the weak side corner.
In the weak side corner.
Yeah.
It's not many times that the guy, the wing that's coming down the middle gets that pass. Because in theory, if you're guarding the ball, 1,000, 2,000, take away the basket, and then jump out, right? To take away the shot. The guy that's guarding the ball, when he says 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, why doesn't he just take the guard that's coming out for the pick-the-picker, and the guard that's guarding the pick-the-picker guy just falls right to the guy that's taking the ball out?
Yeah.
You go 1,000, 2,000. JJ Redick is flying off left, right, where you know he's dangerous. He can shoot straight up and down if he wants to, or he's going to fade if he wants to as well, maybe kick you.
It's my natural shooting motion. It's my natural shooting motion.
I'm guarding the ball. I just take JJ, and the guard who was chasing you just falls right to the guy that's taking the ball out. That's one. That's not. We could talk about that.
So
later.
no. So what's interesting about that? I like that. I'll tell you why. Because like someone who ran that play, right? So whether I slipped or set the screen, I'm coming off. A lot of teams after 1,000 would send the guy guarding the takeout guy. They'd send him to me.
Yeah.
The problem is my guy's still chasing me. So what happens? I get the ball. I don't have a shot because now I got two guys at me. It's a quick pass back to the inbounder. He gets a layup.
So don't chase you.
That's what I'm saying. It's actually a good coverage.
Take you to the screen.
Yeah.
And at the screen, the X5 that's guarding the pick-the-picker big opens up and you slide right to the guy that's guarding. I didn't know if you wanted a second glass. I didn't know. I have another coverage too.
Okay.
I love talking basketball, by the way.
So you guys saw the clip. It's really nothing groundbreaking. It's just really another example of LeBron biting another idea. The same way that he stole the whole idea of making the sequel to Space Jam. And I've come to realize that this is just what he does. He just takes other people's ideas. Like I said, he has no original bone in his body. But that was just one of my thoughts. Another thought that crossed my mind is how crazy is it that LeBron is paying people in the media, allegedly, of course, and that he has all of these stooges in sports media. But in the end, he really didn't choose any of them, right? So you have Shannon Sharpe that capes for him. You have Kendrick Perkins that capes for him. Richard Jefferson, Ramona Shelburne, Nick Wright, Dave McMenamin, Brian Warthog. I'm sorry. I meant to say Brian Windhorse. And that's just naming a few of these stooges. JJ Redick was also a stooge of his. Draymond Green is an active current player, but he waves the pom-poms and does a lot of LeBron's bidding for him. But out of all these people he could have chose to launch a podcast with, in the end, he chose JJ Redick. Now, Redick, at best, was a solid, I would say decent to solid role player that provided three-point shooting. But let's be real. He was a marginal player at best. And honestly, with him choosing JJ Redick over all of those people, that just goes to show that it never pays to be a groupie for someone or their fanboy. I honestly believe, even if these guys don't outwardly express it, that they feel a way about LeBron choosing JJ Redick over any of them to do this podcast with. Now, you guys might say that I'm reaching or that I'm crazy, whatever the case may be, but I'm going to play you guys this clip of Draymond Green talking about LeBron launching his podcast. Now, even though it might sound like he's joking, people usually hide hurt and annoyance behind humor. So listen to what Draymond Green had to say about LeBron launching his own podcast.
I must say I am a little upset that LeBron James is like going on a podcast and he still haven't been on the Draymond Green show. But when it's your own thing, you kind of can't say anything. So I guess I'll live with it for now. Pick the bone with him that I got to pick with him later.
All right, so you guys heard what he had to say. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, right, if many of these people who are LeBron stooges, if their tone or their rhetoric starts to change about LeBron because they low key or maybe even high key feel a way about him doing this project with JJ Redick. Now, the reason why I believe that the rhetoric and the tone surrounding LeBron by these media stooges is going to change is I say this for two reasons, right? So number one is yes, they're saying nice things about him because they're getting payola, allegedly, but eventually they might think, if they haven't already, that they've proven their usefulness to him and they would love the opportunity to work with him. You see, cashing checks to say nice things is one thing. But like I said in the previous episode, what people want in the media more than anything is they want access and they want exclusives, right? And that's what they would like to get from LeBron. So if LeBron worked with any of them or he appeared on any of their podcasts, that would heighten their profile significantly in the media landscape. But the fact he hasn't done that for them, and now he's starting his own show with a guy like JJ Redick, that is going to make them feel a way. They're going to start to feel salty about it, right? Because imagine the exposure that having LeBron on your show or working with a guy like LeBron on a platform, what that can bring, right? But in the end, he didn't. And I am willing to bet that all of these stooges that were waving the pom-poms for LeBron, they were not even on a short list for him. And that can create resentment. And if you don't believe me, I want you guys to listen to this clip of Shannon Sharpe and Kendrick Perkins arguing back and forth on national television about who is the bigger fan of LeBron.
Sometimes I catch a sneak dissing too. But stay over there.
You know what's
can't
crazy?
come back to the
You know
Lakers.
what-
You over there with the Clippers, stay with that.
Time out. You just hopped on this LeBron train. I've been on this train since 2001. You forgot. Now let me go take you in history. Me and LeBron played together. Me and LeBron was in the Mickey D's class. So when it comes to being an advocate for LeBron James, you just joined the family reunion. You just got you a side of
I
potatoes.
can't tell.
You knew
So you saw that both of these guys are arguing, and in the end, none of them got chose, right? And that leads me to my second point of why I feel that the rhetoric and the tone about him is going to change, is because these guys are in media, and LeBron is the basketball player. So the people in media, they stayed in their world, and LeBron, he had his own world in basketball. But now what LeBron is doing is he's entering the media space, and he's trying to do it independently. So they're going to naturally start to see him as a threat. They're going to look at it like, now you're coming into our lane, right? Even if it's not LeBron's intention necessarily, which I'm going to get into in a moment what his real intentions are, they're going to start to think that LeBron is undermining them. If there's any life lesson to take from this and something to remember, is that most people want to see you do well, but they never want to see you do better than them, especially when it's something that they are already doing, right? That is what you call a scarcity mentality, which unfortunately many people possess, right? So a lot of them are going to see that LeBron is creeping into their lane, and I just don't believe that they're going to take too kindly to it. And you know what I really find to be interesting is that Stephen A, Shannon Sharpe, and many of these guys on TV, they used to talk down on us guys on the internet, calling us bloggers, really in a way to just dismiss us. But now many of these same people are running to the internet and starting their own YouTube channels and their own podcasts. So why is that? Because they see the limitations of working in the corporate mainstream media space, and they're seeing the decline of mainstream media. So they're running to become the same bloggers and YouTubers that they once spoke down to. And me saying all of this, it ties into the final points that I really want to make, right? So another thought that crossed my mind, when I heard that LeBron was launching this podcast, really is just the viability of the show. So they're meant to discuss pure basketball, right? Now, JJ Redick, I remember, was it recently, a couple of weeks ago, he was on ESPN First Take complaining that the media doesn't do a good job of educating fans on the game. And now, honestly, looking back, hindsight is always 2020. He was probably saying that as like a precursor to a rollout for this podcast, right? But what I think him and LeBron don't realize, and they will come to realize this, it's not that fans are not educated on the game. It's that they do not want to be educated on the game. They can talk all of the X's and O's that they want, right? They can discuss their favorite plays and what to do in game time situations. But guess what? The audience just doesn't care. What they really want is they want narratives, they want storylines, they want unique and authentic perspectives on the game and issues surrounding the game, right? The mainstream media will push whatever is on their agenda, right? But they're not able to produce that authentic level of content. That's why independent content creators have been really doing well on these independent platforms. And I've seen clips from the first episode. I didn't watch it in full because I'm not going to watch this foolishness, but I've seen clips of it. And what were they discussing? Who are the most influential players in history? Wow, what an authentic topic. We've never heard anyone ever have that discussion before. That is some groundbreaking stuff. Like, give me a break. They're promoting it like it's going to be X's and O's, but really and truly, they're going to start discussing the same things that everyone else is discussing, right? And by the way, there's a channel, Carcino for Life. Carcino, he does a really great job of breaking down the games and giving commentary and also providing X's and O's. I believe he actually has a good balance when it comes to his channel in discussing all of these different topics. But you know why else it works for him? Because he's not someone that is bought and paid for. He's raw, he keeps it real, and I may not agree with everything that he says, but I do know that he is coming from an authentic place. And that's one of the things that I respect in him and in his channel. And there are other creators who are like that too. You have Dreamers Pro, you have Kwame Brown, you have Two Raw, Scap Attack, and a host of others that give you that good balance. So again, these guys are not really doing anything groundbreaking. And like I mentioned earlier, he stole the entire concept of his show from Kobe Bryant when he had Detail, right? But even if you look at Kobe Bryant's show Detail, that was different too, because we all knew Kobe was a student of the game, right? He was taught by Tex Winters, Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Jerry West, and a host of others. Plus, if anyone can recall, he said the niche audience for his show was current and upcoming athletes that wanted to learn how to play. He didn't really do that show for a mainstream audience because he understood the media landscape very well. And the guy won an Emmy. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the guy won an Oscar. So clearly he knew what he was doing when he entered the media space. He knew what the audience was looking for. And hell, he even knew what the Academy was looking for. And he delivered by winning an Oscar. So that was Kobe's journey. Now, let's be real. Who was LeBron mentored by? When he came into the NBA, he conducted himself for the past 20 plus years like he already knows everything about the game, that he is this basketball genius like Matt Damon's character in Good Will Hunting, and that no one can tell him nothing. So you're not really going to get any unique insights because he himself doesn't seek unique insights. He just sees the game and plays the game his way. So I don't believe he's going to give any special perspective. It's just going to be another echo chamber, just like his show, The Shop, where he'll say something, no matter how ridiculous and dumb it is, like you saw with the whole topic about the most influential players. He's just going to say a lot of foolish, stupid things. And JJ Redick will just nod his head, smile, and agree, right? Now, you guys saw in that brief clip earlier when LeBron was breaking down plays, Redick just agreed with him. He's not going to challenge LeBron on any of his views. He's definitely not going to speak with him, or he's not going to speak to him with the same level of antipathy and condescension that he was speaking with to Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. I can guarantee he's not going to do that. And that's why I believe the show will have a lot of hype going into it, right? People will be excited. It's going to gain traction fast. He's going to get a lot of followers and a lot of subscribers. And even the first episode, which just came out, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it reaches 1 million views, slightly more. But then I think after the first couple of episodes, the show will taper off and it's going to become dry and stale, right? Because it's just not interesting. I believe that the show will falter and then they will be faced with three decisions to make. They will either have to switch it up and start discussing storylines and narratives, or they're going to have to stop the show altogether, or these guys are just trying to use this platform to try and leverage and get a commentary job with a major network. I know JJ Redick already has one, but I think LeBron is going to try to use this platform to try to see if he can, switch and get into mainstream media, kind of like how Tom Brady, at the end of his career, he signed a 10-year, $375 million contract. I would not be surprised if LeBron tries to angle and get something similar from ESPN, right? So when they announced the show, they said that the show has no sponsorships. Now, I think the reason why it doesn't have sponsorships, it's not because LeBron or Redick are not big time names in the space. They honestly are. The issue is not that their names cannot bring in sponsors. Here's what I believe, right? That these companies, right, before deciding to sponsor the show, they want to make an assessment on the long-term viability of it. Are these guys and this show going to be around for the long haul, or are they going to pack it up and just get out of there if things don't go well as quickly as they hoped? Because one thing that I think the audience has to understand is that LeBron and JJ Redick, these guys are not regular independent content creators, right? They're not people with a relatively good camera that can sit and talk, right? And then they have a laptop that they can just edit their videos, make their thumbnails, and just upload it. They're not small time like that, right? People like me. What these guys are is they're big time personalities being represented by conglomerates, right? So it's not like they're making minimal investments. They're investing in major equipment, branding, editors, and marketing. That's a lot of money when you really calculate it and break it down. And because it's a big investment, one thing about media is that if they're going to invest big, they want the big returns right away. So I can give you an example to kind of compare and contrast what I'm talking about. So I mentioned earlier, I like Dreamers Pro, right? I think he makes great content, and he's been making content for years, right? For many years, he's been making content, and he's really starting to blow up in the YouTube independent media space within the past year or so, right? And I love to see the progress and the growth that he's had, right? And the reason why he can now enjoy the fruits of his labor and why he's becoming a dominant name in the independent media space is because he has been patient and he has been consistently putting in the work to be successful year in and year out, right? But when you are big time media, right, like a LeBron or a JJ Redick, and you have big time companies backing you, they don't show or have that level of patience that a small time creator or independent creator would have, right? So they have a very small, narrow window to show a return on investment before they decide to pull a plug. So now with this show, they know LeBron as an athlete, and he's a household name for being an athlete. But what they want to do is they want to see how the show is going to fare before a sponsor decides to go all in on it. That's just what I believe. They're taking a wait and see approach to see if he can even stick with the show and how the market and fans and the audience are going to respond to the show, right? And they need to see that this show is a viable product with a certain future, or is this just another experimental LeBron James vanity project? Now, look, I'm going to be very honest here, as brutal as it might sound. LeBron James is just not the podcasting type. He's an outgoing guy, for sure he is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's built for podcasting. He's not witty, he's not funny, he's not very articulate, he's not a charismatic guy, and I don't find him to be very captivating. He just doesn't have that kind of personality. Like, quite frankly, I'm just going to be honest, the guy is corny, right? The guy's a clown. I don't mean to be mean. I'm just calling it how I see it, right? So, and I want to show you guys what I mean when I say that the guy is not very articulate. So I'm going to play a clip and I want you guys to listen to this. Here's him trying to respond to some comments that were made by the GM of the 76ers, Daryl Morey. I want you guys to listen to how he speaks and see how much he struggles to form a sentence and actually say, and how much he butchers a quote.
I mean, that's not for me to understand or for me to worry about. I think we have a hierarchy. We have the higher who will figure that out. I think, but at the end of the day, only time will tell. None of us know. None of us. We're all in the unknown. Others, and you only think about yourself. So I don't believe. I don't want to get into a word or sentence feud with Daryl. Morey, but I believe he wasn't educated on the situation at hand.
All right, so you guys saw that clip. You guys saw the way that he was just stammering through it, and he couldn't really articulate himself well, right? Could you ever imagine Jordan, Kobe, Magic, Shaq, Stephen Curry, a Kyrie Irving, a Jaylen Brown, right? Players that have charisma and the ability to articulate themselves well, right? Whether they're superstars or not, there's some players that are just very articulate, right? Could you ever imagine those kind of players stumbling like that in a response? And then he says a phrase that's not even a real phrase. I'm not going to get into a word, a sentence. Like, most guys in that situation would have said something funny. They would have said something witty, just to end the conversation or move the conversation along. And the crazy thing too is all he had to say is, I'm not going to get into a war of words or back and forth with him. What does he say? Well, I'm not going to get into a sentence, a feud. Like, he just doesn't have that level of personality. He's one of those people that thinks he's smarter than he actually is. He's just not that smart of a guy. And you know what? It's okay. But I guarantee that you cannot name a single LeBron quote where he said something deep or profound. Just name it. Go in the comment section and tell me what is the profound quote that LeBron is known for saying. I guarantee you can't. But Michael Jordan, he has a bunch. Kobe, he has a bunch. Muhammad Ali, he has a bunch. Many great athletes have them, just not LeBron because he's not that guy. And in a way, he kind of reminds me of Magic. Not in a bad way, but Magic, unlike LeBron, actually had charisma, right? There was just a certain je ne sais quoi to his personality that LeBron could never possess. But after Magic left basketball, he was trying to find his footing. He did a late night talk show, and that didn't go very well, right? You guys should actually look up a clip with him and Howard Stern. It's very cringy and difficult to watch. But he explored other avenues until he found his place as a charity advocate, an entrepreneur, an investor, and a sports franchise owner, among many things. So I believe with this podcast, this is just LeBron exploring, trying to find the next thing after basketball, while also trying to feed his narcissism. Because, like I said, whether you guys want to believe it or not, he failed as an actor and he failed as a film producer. And this brings me to my final thoughts. Finally, we got there. Why did he choose podcasting? Well, because it's all the rage. I've personally been podcasting since 2018, and I saw how much it really started to explode around 2020, 2021 due to the pandemic. Now, everyone and their cousin has a podcast now. But the reason why I think he's doing it, aside from his narcissism, right, is that there are establishment characters. And make no mistake about it, LeBron James is part of the mainstream establishment. But their goal, right, the powers that be, whatever you want to call it, their goal is to get all of these big star names to develop platforms and start podcasts to drown out the noise of the smaller independent creators. Now, I recently saw Lamar Odom and Caitlyn Jenner are developing their own sports podcast together. So now you have LeBron and Redick. You have Gilbert Arenas. Don't even get me started on him. Shaq has one. Carmelo has one. Darius Miles and Quentin Richardson. Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. More and more athletes, right? Draymond Green. More and more of these prominent athletes, and even some of them current athletes, they're getting podcasts, right? And even if you go outside of the sports world, how many celebrities and entertainers, right, are starting their own podcasts? So I believe that this is just another medium for mainstream media to try to dominate and control the game. Now, podcasting at its inception used to be a very niche medium, right? But it exploded in a way that not many could have predicted. Even YouTube as a platform was primarily built by independent creators. Now, the beauty of this was that it was the independent voices, right, that people were looking for when it came to podcasting. So now that the mainstream media sees it as a thriving medium, right? And then you look, television and radio are on a steep decline. What they're looking to do now is they're looking to take over the podcasting medium as quickly as possible. And the quickest way to do that is to bring all of the established big name celebrities, get them to have their own podcast, and that way they can tilt and take away the attention from the independent creators to the more establishment celebrity, so to speak, right? But one thing about podcasting that makes it different is that this is really an entirely different space. So it's a lot harder to gatekeep podcasting as a platform, same way that they were similarly to the way that they were able to with television as well as radio. But look, all of these celebrities, whether it's LeBron or whatever the case may be, whether or not they're doing podcasting, I welcome it, right? Now, when it comes to LeBron's podcast, I personally won't watch it because I don't really care to, and I don't even want to, right? But if he says anything crazy or ridiculous, then I'll probably do reaction or educational videos, in response to what it is that he's saying because I want to and I can, right? But this is the game, and this is capitalism. And really, this is what content creation is all about. It's about getting better, being consistent, and being patient with the journey, right? And if you're dope, right, and you're great at what you do, you'll get to where you're supposed to get to. And if you're not, then you either have to find ways to improve and get better, or you just quit, right? So, hey, LeBron wants to do a podcast. Go ahead, do your thing. I already know what to expect. I explained all of that in this episode, right? But that's just my thoughts on this whole thing. You guys be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. You guys can also check out my books. The link will be in the description. It'll be pinned in the comments below. You guys can also follow me and the podcast on social media. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.